Victorian elites lived in such rigid social fear that one misdelivered visiting card could ruin a marriage, collapse a political alliance, or socially assassinate an entire family in under 24 hours. All that wealth, and yet they moved through their world like beautifully dressed surveillance puppets, watched, judged, and constantly performing. Before we dive in, be kind and subscribe. It's free, and I promise I won't repay your kindness by lacing you into a steel-boned corset. Also, what part of the world are you tuning in from? I'm always curious to know. Now settle in, get comfortable. Today you'll drift through one full day in the life of a Victorian elite, from the moment your eyes open in a velvet-draped bedroom to the final flicker of candlelight at night. A world of beauty, absurdity, pressure, and luxury, all waiting for you to slip quietly inside. You open your eyes slowly, not to an alarm clock, but to the muted glow of another Victorian morning filtering through velvet drapes so heavy they could double as winter coats. The air in your grand townhouse bedroom is cool, touched with the faint tang of London coal smoke drifting in from the street outside. Even the haze looks expensive, suspended in golden ribbons of light that rest softly on polished mahogany furniture, each surface buffed to a shine by hands you will never see. You haven't moved yet, you haven't spoken, and already the day has begun without you. Somewhere beyond your door, a quiet network of footsteps stirs. Soft, measured, practiced. The house is waking. Or rather, the people who maintain your life are waking on your behalf. A servant is coaxing a fire back to warmth in the grate. Someone else is folding linens with military precision. Downstairs, the butler is inspecting the silver, because even at dawn, not a single spoon in this household is allowed to look as tired as its owner. You lie there for a moment, in a bed that could easily sleep 6, with a mattress so stuffed with horsehair and feathers that it feels more like a floating island than furniture. It would be tempting to call all of this luxury, and it is. But it is also something else. It is responsibility, dressed in silk. Because waking up as a Victorian elite is a performance that lasts all day, and it begins the instant your eyes flutter open. Before you even sit up, your name is already working. Your family name, that is. The ancestral one carved above fireplaces and embroidered into handkerchiefs. The name that has kept this townhouse standing for generations, and the one you're expected to expand, elevate, and defend. Your first thought of the day is not, "What shall I do today?" It is, "Whom shall I not offend today?" After all, a single whisper about your character can ripple through London faster than the morning fog. A hostess with a grudge can erase your presence from her guest list. A bored aristocrat can twist a harmless comment into a scandalous rumour over breakfast. And by dinner, you may discover, too late, that you have become the subject of polite, smiling concern. This is the psychological weight of being an elite. A kind of velvet-lined anxiety that never truly loosens its grip. Your room tells its own story about expectations. The wallpaper alone cost more than most people earn in a year. Elaborate, imported, designed not for pleasure but for signalling. The wardrobe against the far wall holds dozens of garments, each tailored so precisely that even your posture is expected to obey them. The carpet beneath your slippers was chosen by someone who is no longer alive, but whose taste you're still expected to admire. Everything around you, every stitch, every carving, every gleaming hinge, whispers a reminder. You've inherited beauty, status, and comfort. But you've also inherited the burden of maintaining it. A faint knock breaks your thoughts. Not loud. Never loud. Loud knocks are for emergencies or the lower staff. This one is gentle. A message wrapped in courtesy. Your personal maid or valet waits quietly outside, carrying hot water, a fresh cloth, and perhaps the first tray of the day. They will not enter until you grant permission. Even they understand that the first moments of a Victorian morning are delicate, measured, and steeped in ritual. When you allow them to step inside, they move with the smooth efficiency of someone who has done this for years. Curtains are drawn just slightly wider. The fire is coaxed brighter. Fresh air seeps in through a window opened only for a moment, just enough to shake the room awake before the chill can settle. You're offered warm water for your face and a choice of robe carefully laid out the night before. Your personal servant's hands move silently, almost invisibly, making small adjustments to the room before retreating to the edge of your vision. They're orchestrating the morning. You're expected to glide through it. But beneath all this soft beauty lies a truth no one says aloud. You have everything except freedom. Because while the world envies the elite for their luxury, very few understand the cost of maintaining their social survival. Every decision today, from the tilt of your chin at breakfast, to the firmness of your handshake, to the colour of your gloves, can be interpreted, analysed, or misinterpreted. Every interaction is a delicate performance balancing politeness, strategy, and instinct for self-preservation. Lying in your grand bed, you may think you own your life, but truly the day owns you. Take the ancestral portraits watching from the walls. Painted in deep, shadowed oils, they seem to peer down at you with expectation, as if silently reminding you that they managed centuries of dignity and decorum, so you'd better do the same. You can practically hear great-grandfather attempting stern telepathic guidance about posture, propriety, and the importance of doing your lineage proud. Outside, a carriage rattles over cobblestones. Somewhere across the city, someone else with a name nearly as important as yours is already manoeuvring through the day, sending letters, making alliances, choosing rivals. There is always competition in the air even before dawn has properly settled. So you rise from your bed, not because you wish to, but because the machinery of your life has already started. You rise because expectations are old and heavy and impossible to ignore. You rise because this is the bargain of elite life, comfort and confinement interwoven, and as your feet touch the carpet, soft and warm beneath the morning light, you take a steady breath. Ahead lies a day filled with beauty, pressure, ritual, and silent scrutiny. A day in which luxury and anxiety walk hand in hand. You're a Victorian elite, and your gilded prison has opened its doors once again. You haven't been awake for long, perhaps 20 minutes, when the next ritual of Victorian elite life quietly glides into place. A soft knock, a pause, and then your personal servant enters with the solemnity of someone approaching a royal court. In their hands, balanced with 2 decades of practice, is the first silver tray of the day, and on it lies the true engine of Victorian high society, your morning mail. Not bills and advertisements like we receive today. No, Victorian mail is something far more dangerous, something with teeth. Each envelope is a tiny grenade wrapped in cream-coloured stationery, ready to explode into alliances, insults, expectations or opportunities, depending on how you choose to open it and how quickly. Your servant sets the tray beside you with a respectful bow. Careful not to disturb the delicate arrangement of envelopes, you take a breath. The day's social chess match has begun. At first glance, the pile looks innocent, lovely even. Some envelopes are trimmed with gold foil, others bear embossed family crests that practically scream, "We are important, and we want you to know it before you even read the first line." One has handwriting so exquisite that you already know it belongs to someone who takes themselves very seriously, usually a good sign to proceed with caution. You begin sorting them, one by one. The first category is straightforward: invitations, balls, dinners, music halls, charitable committees, afternoon teas that are somehow described as small, even though the hostess has invited half of London. Each invitation is a delicate puzzle. Should you accept? Decline politely? Pretend your schedule is already full? Or worst of all, attend out of obligation and spend the evening avoiding someone who talks exclusively about horse breeding? But every choice matters. Accepting too many invitations makes you look desperate. Declining too many makes you look arrogant. And declining the wrong one can ignite a cold yet devastating feud that lasts years. The Victorian elite may not have invented pettiness, but they certainly perfected it. Next come the personal notes, handwritten little messages on thick cardstock. These can contain anything from condolences to congratulations to veiled attempts at manipulation. Some friends write with a sweetness that feels like sugar melting too quickly in hot tea. Others are bluntly strategic, reminding you of favoured connections or requesting the smallest, harmless favour. That is, of course, socially loaded. And then there are the letters you dread most, the strategic ones. These are from people who wield their pens like sabres. Some are politicians trying to nudge you into a cause. Some are relatives reminding you of obligations you conveniently forgot. Some are matrons attempting subtle matchmaking. And occasionally one letter comes from someone so socially mysterious that reading it feels like stepping into fog. Every envelope has weight, not physical weight, but social gravity. Each one pulls you in a different direction. One folded note might shore up an alliance. Another might accidentally insult a rival. Another might open the door to a potential marriage match, whether you want one or not. Another might nudge you closer to a political faction you're not entirely fond of. This is why the mail tray arrives so early. Because your entire day, and quite possibly your entire season, will be shaped by what's written inside. You pick up one envelope from Lady Charlotte, a woman whose handwriting is so precise that even her loops seem judgmental. She invites you to supper next Thursday. The guest list includes several pillars of society and, unfortunately, at least 3 people who pretend not to know you if they see you outside of a ballroom. Declining would be rude. Accepting means you'll spend the evening walking a tightrope of politeness. You sigh. Lady Charlotte always wins. Another envelope leaks the faintest scent of rosewater. This is from a well-meaning relative gently reminding you that so-and-so's daughter has recently come of age, which is Victorian code for she's now available to be married off like rare livestock. You tuck it aside, telling yourself you'll respond later, but you won't. No one truly wants to respond to those letters. Next, a bill. A bill for flowers. Yes, flowers. Because the giant arrangement decorating your entrance hall costs more per week than most people earn in a month. Flowers that will wilt. Flowers that will be replaced. Flowers that represent nothing but the quiet pressure of staying fashionable. Then you lift an envelope that is heavier than the rest. This one bears the crest of a prominent political family. The paper alone feels expensive enough to buy a month's supply of coal. The message inside is vague. Purposefully vague. A hint about upcoming votes in Parliament, a nudge about who you should be seen speaking with, a suggestion that your presence would be valuable at Saturday's dinner. It's a polite command in disguise, and because it's phrased politely, it's even more binding. Victorian elites didn't say, "Come," or "Do this," or "We expect you." They said, "We would be so pleased if you would join us," which means you will be there unless you want trouble. You stack the envelopes neatly into categories, a system every elite develops for survival. You must respond today, not tomorrow, not this evening, today. Same-day replies are a rule inscribed somewhere deep in the unwritten laws of society. A delayed reply is suspicious. It suggests disinterest or insult or, worst of all, disorganization. Your signature, your phrasing, even the colour of ink must remain perfectly consistent. Tone is everything. Your letters must dance on that fine line between warm and aloof, friendly but not eager, present but not needy, and just enough charm to stay relevant, but never enough to appear desperate. It is the art of social neutrality, elevated to a skill. And as strange as it sounds, these letters are the heartbeat of your day. They carry the rhythm of your obligations, your alliances, your invitations, and your dignified denials. Before breakfast is even served, you've already navigated half a dozen political landscapes, all without leaving your bedroom. A final envelope catches your eye. No crest, no perfume, just simple handwriting. You open it carefully, and inside is a short note. No invitation, no demand, no manipulation. Just a gentle line. I hope your day treats you kindly. You pause, surprised. It's the smallest letter, but somehow the most disarming. You place it aside softly, a rare reminder that even in this world of strategies and silk, kindness occasionally slips through the cracks. And with that, the morning mail is sorted. The first battle of the day is complete. You exhale. Breakfast politics await, and before we step into that elegant chaos, be kind and subscribe. Breakfast, in a Victorian elite household, is not simply the first meal of the day. It is the day's opening ceremony, a soft-spoken political summit disguised as a pleasant gathering over eggs, toast, and genteel silence. It begins the moment you step out of your room and into the corridor, already aware that timing is everything. Arriving too early suggests eagerness. Arriving too late suggests arrogance. Arriving precisely on time is the goal, but of course, precisely on time is not written anywhere. The rules exist, but only in the invisible ink of social instinct. You make your way toward the breakfast room, the faint scent of fried kidneys, a Victorian favourite for reasons lost to time, drifting through the hall. Servants glide past you like quiet phantoms, carrying trays, unfolding napkins, and ensuring every fork stands at the correct angle, because forks themselves carry reputations here. As you enter, conversation softens, as if gently folding itself around your presence. The breakfast room is warm, sunlit, and arranged with the kind of effortless beauty that actually takes 10 people 2 hours to prepare. A sideboard gleams with polished silver dishes, holding everything from smoked haddock to delicate pastries. The Times lies neatly folded at one end of the table, as if someone picked it up, read it thoroughly, ironed it, then set it down in perfect alignment with the teapot. Your family is already seated. Here is where the real game begins. Breakfast may be semi-informal, but that word should never be mistaken for relaxed. The Victorian elite do not relax. They merely shift into lounges of polite awareness. You choose your seat carefully, the same one you've chosen every day for years, because changing places without warning risks alarming the entire household. Even the butler would blink. You settle gracefully, and breakfast politics officially commence. Someone clears their throat, which is Victorian code for prepare for conversation. And like clockwork, the Times becomes the first battlefield of the morning. News is dissected with the surgical precision of a well-trained tea knife. Parliament's latest squabble, an alarming essay on industrial expansion. A poet nobody likes but everyone pretends to admire. Reports of a scandal in a family whose name you absolutely must not repeat. Opinions are shared, but gently, always gently. No raised voices, no passionate gestures. Even enthusiasm must be measured to avoid looking unrefined. You contribute just enough commentary to signal intelligence without drifting into arrogance. A soft remark about trade, a mild observation about political unrest, nothing controversial. The goal here is not to win the debate. It is to avoid giving your relatives new material to whisper about. Next, the conversation transitions seamlessly, as if following an invisible script, into household budgets. This is the moment when bills, expenses, and looming costs drift into the air like polite ghosts. The rising price of coal, the cost of maintaining the conservatory, new uniforms for the footmen, the shocking bill for last week's floral arrangements, which were absolutely necessary even if they did cost more than a small fishing village. And always, always the delicate dance of appearing financially stable. Even if the account's ledger is quietly weeping. You nod thoughtfully, making small agreeable sounds. A Victorian elite would rather perish than appear uninformed about household finances, even if they have never personally lifted a bank ledger in their life. After budgets comes the next act: social obligations. Invitations must be accepted or declined. Guests must be hosted. Evening plans must be coordinated so that no one accidentally attends two competing events. A mistake so embarrassing it could cause a multi-family diplomatic incident. Names are spoken in hushed tones, the way modern people speak about taxes or medical results. You and your family review the week's upcoming obligations like chess players mapping out their next 20 moves. And then, inevitably, the breakfast table drifts toward its most thrilling subject: rumours from the previous night. Victorian gossip is an art form. It requires the precision of embroidery and the subtlety of watercolour. No one ever simply states a rumour. That would be crude. Instead, someone mentions a curious occurrence, and another suggests they heard something interesting, and suddenly you're reconstructing a scandal like detectives at a candlelit crime scene. There is mention of someone leaving a ball suspiciously early. Someone else was seen talking too closely with someone they absolutely should not be talking closely with. A couple may be on the brink of announcing something, or hiding something, or avoiding something. The truth doesn't matter. The performance does. You eat quietly, nodding at appropriate moments, offering understated insights when necessary. And then, just as the conversation seems to settle into comfortable rhythm, something happens. Someone arrives late. A family member steps into the breakfast room more than 2 minutes past the socially acceptable arrival window. And for a Victorian elite, this is the equivalent of lighting a small firework at the table. No one says anything aloud. Absolutely not. That would be monstrous. But heads tilt, brows lift by millimetres, and the air grows subtly denser. Servants shift quietly as if bracing for impact. Late arrival invites speculation. Were they unwell, distracted, avoiding someone, trying to signal something? Everything is symbolic here in the world of soft morning politics. The latecomer offers a casual apology, which is cheerfully accepted and permanently recorded in the family's mental archives for later analysis. Breakfast continues. You sip your tea, the fine china warming your fingers. Someone remarks on the damp weather. Someone else muses about redecorating the morning room. A small debate arises about who is the best cook in London, a topic far more dangerous than politics, and beneath it all, the subtle ballet of glances, gestures, pauses, and tone continues. Breakfast is technically nourishment, but the real sustenance here is influence. It's not the food that matters, it's the performance, the careful timing, the unspoken expectations, the measured tone of every observation. By the time you rise from the table, you have already played your first political match of the day. And you've done it before you've even touched your second cup of tea. After the delicate battlefield of breakfast, you return to your room for the next great undertaking of the Victorian morning, becoming presentable. For a modern listener, this may sound simple. A shirt, some trousers, perhaps a brush through the hair. But no. Victorian elites treat dressing the way medieval knights treated armouring up for war. It is a system, a ritual, and a quiet psychological marathon. Your personal maid or valet is already waiting, standing patiently beside an array of garments that look less like clothing and more like the before picture of a particularly complicated engineering project. This is not fashion. This is architecture. Victorian elite dressing follows a strict rule. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is chosen casually. Every stitch must align with your rank, the time of day, the season, your social schedule, and the unspoken emotional weather of London society. Your maid or valet begins the process with professional calm, the calm of someone who has buttoned more tiny buttons in one morning than a modern person will in a lifetime. The first layer is something simple, a chemise or shift for ladies, a shirt for gentlemen. This is the foundation, the layer so close to the skin it almost doesn't count. but it's essential. It's the one layer you actually get to breathe in. And then, the corset. Ah, yes, the centerpiece, the star, the Victorian spine's greatest enemy and best friend. Your maid lifts it with reverence, as if holding a sacred relic, boned with steel or whale bone, stitched with precision, and laced like a Gothic cathedral window. The corset is the structure upon which all of elite fashion is built. The moment it wraps around you, you understand why Victorians were so obsessed with good posture. The corset encourages it with the persistence of a strict schoolteacher following you around with a ruler. Your maid pulls the laces through practiced hands, slowly, slowly, tightening with each measured breath. Not too tight, not too loose. The goal is not suffocation. The goal is silhouette, a fashionable shape, beauty engineered. Victorians believed that elegance must be constructed, like a bridge or a train station or a complicated moral dilemma. As the corset settles into place, your breathing adjusts to it. Not quite shallow, not quite deep, but something in between. It's a posture you will maintain all day. Upright, composed, serene. Even if your ribs are sending small disgruntled telegrams of complaint. Next comes the petticoat. Or petticoats. Plural, because Victorian fashion truly believes in the magic of layering. Think of it as wearing several whispering clouds, each one rustling softly as it settles in place. These layers add shape, sound, and a certain theatrical swish to your movements. And then we reach the engineering marvels. The crinoline, if you're in the earlier Victorian decades, is essentially a cage made of steel hoops designed to keep your skirt floating elegantly around you, like a fabric planet in orbit. Useful for grandeur, slightly less useful for passing through narrow doorways. Or perhaps it's the later fashion, the bustle, a charming yet baffling invention that gathers volume at the back of your gown, creating a silhouette that says, I am refined, fashionable, and structurally supported. Bustles range from small and subtle to impressively architectural, some resembling miniature verandas. Gentlemen, don't feel left out. Your dressing ritual may lack crinolines, but it compensates with layers of its own. Waistcoats, crisp collars, thick wool trousers, precisely knotted cravats, all enforcing the silhouette of discipline and authority. Victorian menswear is less flamboyant than ladies' fashion, but equally symbolic. It says, I have money, I have time, and I absolutely refuse to sweat. Your valet may assist with the cravat, folding and looping it with the precision of someone tying the world's most judgmental bow. A gentleman's knot says a great deal about him. Too loose, and you look lazy. Too tight, and you look nervous. Perfect symmetry is mandatory. By this point, you're surrounded by layers, linen, cotton, silk, steel boning, wool, lace, and the unwavering pressure of societal expectations. Every layer adds meaning, status, and insulation, physical and social. Now, the outer garments arrive. For ladies, a dress selected specifically for the morning hours. Soft colours, simple lines, modest embroidery. Simple, of course, still means several yards of luxurious fabric arranged in flattering drapery. For gentlemen, a morning coat, impeccably tailored. The kind that suggests you have extremely important things to accomplish today, even if those important things involve nothing more than reading letters, nodding thoughtfully and attending social calls. Accessories come last, but they are never optional. Gloves, for instance, are crucial. Gloves protect your hands from the outside world and the outside world from your hands. In Victorian logic, gloves are the physical embodiment of decency. Jewellery, too, must match the hour. Pearls for morning, diamonds saved for evening. Fashion is a timetable as much as a pleasure. Throughout the process, your maid or valet remains efficient and mostly silent. They know every hook, button and clasp by heart. They anticipate every movement. They create order from chaos, shape from fabric, elegance from raw materials. and when they step back at last, you stand there fully transformed, not simply dressed, but constructed. You are now the ideal Victorian silhouette, upright, graceful, sculpted by layers and engineering. Your appearance tells the world everything it needs to know, that you're wealthy, composed, respectable, and ready to navigate the intricate battlefield of social expectations. You take a small breath. The corset reminds you not to take a large one. Your clothes rustle softly as you turn toward the door, each sound a reminder that your fashion has a pulse of its own. You're dressed not just for the day, but for the identity you must uphold. Victorian dressing is not a private routine. It is a daily ceremony, a performance, a declaration. And as you step out of your room draped in elegance and constraint, you know that every glance, every footstep, every social interaction will be filtered through this carefully constructed silhouette. By late morning, the household has fully woken. The last traces of breakfast have vanished as if spirited away by polite ghosts, and your outfit has sculpted you into the ideal Victorian silhouette. Now comes the moment when your mind shifts toward the day's true battlefield, the London season. To an outsider, the season might sound like a festival, or perhaps a charming period of dances and garden parties, where everybody simply enjoys themselves. But you, as someone living inside this world, know the truth. The season is a machine, a glittering, elegant, lace-covered machine designed to produce exactly one thing: advantageous marriages. Everything else, the balls, the dinners, the opera, the luncheons, the promenades, those are merely gears in the mechanism. Beautiful gears, polished gears, sometimes exhausting gears, but gears all the same. As you move through your townhouse this morning, you feel the invisible pull of the season shaping the air around you. Servants hurry with fresh flowers, invitations sit waiting for confirmation. Someone is rehearsing polite conversation in the parlour, because your household must appear effortlessly articulate. And somewhere in London right now, dozens of ambitious mothers are sharpening their social strategies like fencers preparing for a duel. The season typically runs from spring through early summer, the months when London's weather is almost tolerable, and when Parliament is in session. This means political families are in town, wealthy families are in town, ambitious families are in town, and every one of them has the same quiet agenda. Who will our children marry? For debutantes, young women entering society for the first time. This is the social equivalent of military deployment. They have trained for years: deportment lessons, dancing lessons, posture practice, conversation etiquette, gown fittings, and of course, learning how to maintain an expression of gentle interest even when someone is explaining the price of barley for the 5th time. Debutantes must glide into ballrooms like graceful butterflies, but under the surface, their families are analysing the room like seasoned tacticians. For mothers, the season is a chessboard, and every unmarried son is a knight. Every unmarried daughter is a queen waiting to be strategically placed. Your own family is no exception. Though the house appears peaceful, there is strategy in every polished surface. Your relatives track social alliances the way modern shoppers track holiday sales. Promising marriage prospects are mapped out mentally, their incomes calculated, their land holdings quietly investigated, their family reputations measured like fabric being cut for a dress. And you, whether you're a debutante or a bachelor or simply a relative drifting through the social tide, you cannot escape the season's gravitational pull. Every event on your schedule, every luncheon, promenade and soiree is guided by the silent question: how will this strengthen our position? You walk past a window and glimpse the city outside, a blur of hansom cabs, fashionable pedestrians, and the soft churn of daily life. But beneath that movement lies something more intricate. London, during the season, becomes a theatre. Every street, park and parlour is a stage on which elites perform their public personas. And there is one rule every Victorian elite understands instinctively: you must attend, you must be visible, You must participate. Because in this world, absence is an insult. Missing an event is not merely inconvenient. It can be interpreted as an act of social warfare. If you skip a ball hosted by someone who considers themselves important, you may find yourself quietly erased from their invitation list the following year. And if you miss an event hosted by someone who considers themselves very important, you may discover that their cousins, neighbours and allies have also magically forgotten about you. Being late is only slightly less disastrous. Arriving late to a grand dinner party signals disrespect. Arriving late to a ball signals arrogance. Arriving late to the opera signals that you believe the show only truly begins when you make your entrance. And if you arrive late to a tea hosted by a formidable matron, well, you simply don't. The fear behind all of this is subtle but constant. Reputation is fragile. It must be maintained with daily diligence. So as the morning brightens and the city hums, you feel the familiar pressure building, gentle, elegant, but firm. Today's events will determine how others view you. Today's behaviour will be remembered in whispers. Today's attendance will shape tomorrow's invitations. You walk into the small sitting room where schedules are kept. On a polished table, your social calendar sits open like an illuminated manuscript. Names, dates and events fill the pages in looping Victorian handwriting. The Ravenscroft Ball, Lady Pembroke's musical evening, afternoon tea with the Hargreaves, opera night with guests from Paris. A garden party rumoured to feature questionable dancing. Every line is an obligation. Every obligation is an opportunity. Debutantes across London are practising their smiles right now. Their mothers are plotting seating arrangements. Their fathers are checking the newspaper for any hint of scandal that might affect the family's standing. And here you stand, wrapped in your carefully assembled morning attire, knowing that the day ahead, like every day of the season, is not simply for enjoyment. It is for positioning, for visibility. For the art of being nearly perfect for entire stretches of time, you lift your chin slightly, the corset helps, and as your steps carry you toward the next chapter of the day, you feel the season's energy pulse through the house. Late morning has barely ended, and already the machinery of elite society is whirring into motion. Early afternoon in Victorian London brings with it one of the most delicate rituals of elite life, the Hyde Park Promenade. Not a simple walk, nor a casual outing, but a choreographed public appearance where the primary goal is not exercise, nor fresh air, nor even pleasure. No, the purpose is to be seen, and seen correctly. If the season is the grand machinery of marriage and reputation, Hyde Park is the showroom floor, the glittering place where all polished parts of society are displayed, and you, dressed in morning elegance, are one of them. Your carriage waits outside your townhouse, polished to a shine so bright it could blind an unprepared passer-by. The horses stand tall, tails impeccably braided, coats gleaming under the pale London sun. The coachman sits high, reins in hand, wearing the household livery with the posture of someone who understands that he represents your dignity long before you yourself appear. You step into the carriage with practiced grace, because entering a vehicle is somehow also a performance, and settle onto the cushioned interior lined with fine upholstery. Some carriages are crimson velvet, others butter soft leather. Yours is understated but unmistakably expensive. A tasteful insignia is painted discreetly on the door, just enough to announce your lineage, but not so loudly as to appear vulgar. Elite subtlety is its own strange form of bragging. Your gloves rest neatly in your lap as the carriage rolls forward. The rhythm of hooves on cobblestones is soothing. A soft, repetitive drum that blends with the distant sounds of vendors, street chatter, and the gentle hum of city life. You ride through the streets with the comfortable confidence of someone who has never once wondered whether your carriage will be recognised. It will be. It always is. As you approach Hyde Park, you notice more carriages converging like elegant ships drifting toward the same harbour. The fashionable hours have begun. That brief window of afternoon when elites appear in the park to greet each other, unintentionally snub each other, or deliberately pretend not to see each other. Timing here is everything. Arrive too early, and you seem overeager. Arrive too late, and people assume you are busy doing something questionable, or worse, unfashionable. But arrive within the perfect window, and you slip gracefully into the river of social traffic. Your carriage enters Rotten Row, the most prestigious riding path in London. Named not for decay, but for the soft gravel that keeps hooves quiet, Rotten Row is where aristocrats ride horses at a dignified pace, nodding to acquaintances with practiced subtlety. Even the horses here seem aware of their audience stepping lightly, tossing their manes with cultured confidence. If you decide to walk instead, you step out gently, assisted by a footman, and join the flow of fashionable pedestrians. The path is lined with well-groomed trees, iron fences and benches occupied by people pretending to rest while actually observing everything. Your posture is upright. Your footsteps are deliberate. Your expression is carefully curated, serene, mildly interested, never frantic. Hydration and emotional honesty can wait until you're indoors again. You stroll slowly, allowing enough time for others to see you, but not so slowly as to suggest aimlessness. Elite life hates aimlessness. It fears it. Every movement must imply purpose, social obligation, or at the very least fashionable leisure. As you walk or ride, you begin the subtle dance of recognition. You nod gently to acquaintances. You smile faintly at people whose names you can't remember, but whose faces you must acknowledge to avoid an accidental declaration of war. And you absolutely pretend not to see the one person you're secretly avoiding. Usually an admirer who doesn't understand that being ignored is the highest form of Victorian rejection. Nearby, a cluster of debutantes walk together, gowns rustling, bonnets decorated with flowers so delicate they seem alive. They laugh softly, never loudly, as they discuss last night's ball, comparing dance cards with quiet excitement. Their mothers trail close behind, evaluating passing families like discreet predators. Carriages loop the row in elegant circles. Some move quickly, signalling energy and confidence. Others move slowly, signalling wealth, because only the truly affluent can afford to waste an afternoon gliding through London with no destination in mind. Each carriage interior is a private theatre, couples whisper. Matrimonial negotiations simmer beneath polite conversation. Someone fans themselves gently, hoping to catch the eye of a desirable acquaintance without appearing obvious. The Victorian elite perfected a unique skill, expressing deep interest while also pretending not to care. Then there is the ritual of pretending not to see someone. This is a delicate art. If a rival approaches, you shift your gaze just slightly, not enough to look rude, but enough to suggest you were momentarily lost in thought. They pass, equally pretending not to see you. It is a silent duel fought with eyelashes and chin angles. The stakes are small but endless. Social signals ricochet across Rotten Row like tiny, elegant arrows. A raised eyebrow here, a polite bow there, a smile that is almost warm but never too warm. The park is a battlefield of grace. The air smells faintly of polished leather, fresh-cut grass, and something sweet drifting from the gardens. Birds chirp as if offering commentary on the parade of humanity below. If you're on horseback, your animal becomes part of the performance. Well-bred horses are prized symbols, their pedigree almost as important as the pedigree of the people riding them. You sit tall in the saddle, partly to show elegance, partly because the corset makes slouching an athletic impossibility. If you're in a carriage, you occasionally lift a gloved hand to adjust the curtain, or wave politely. Judging by the responses, people see you. Being seen is the point. And as the carriage completes another slow circuit through the park, you feel the peculiar sensation of having accomplished something, even though technically you've done nothing at all. Such is the magic of Hyde Park. It transforms presence into power. Eventually, the fashionable hour wanes. The carriages begin their gentle retreat. Footmen step down to assist their passengers. The soft rustling of skirts fades as everyone returns to their townhouse to prepare for the next round of social obligations. You settle back into your carriage, posture still perfect, expression still composed. You have been seen. You have seen others. The ritual is complete. After the elegant ballet of Hyde Park, your afternoon shifts into something deceptively quiet, but socially far more dangerous. Visiting hours. These begin in early afternoon and last just long enough for everyone to pretend they enjoy each other's company without actually having to prove it. Victorian visiting is not simply dropping by. It is a ritual so intricate and sensitive that, if translated into modern life, the average person would hide under their bed in fear of committing a faux pas. Your carriage rolls to a smooth stop outside the first house on your list. Visiting cards, your tiny paper ambassadors, are prepared in a small silver tray. Each card carries your full name, elegantly engraved, because the Victorian elite knew that nothing says refined more than your identity printed in thin, judgmental script. You begin with the ritual of calling cards, the heart of afternoon visits. A footman steps down, opens the carriage door, and presents your card to the butler of the house. What happens next is a miniature diplomatic exchange. The butler glances at your card, noting every detail. Have you bent a corner? Have you folded it slightly? Have you left it plain? Each variation sends a different message. A corner bent indicates a personal call. 2 corners bent. A condolence. A folded card signals you delivered it yourself rather than sending it through a servant. Leaving a card without asking to be received can mean, I respect you, but not enough to enter. Or, I'm pretending I visited so you can't accuse me later. Calling cards are Victorian texting if texting had been invented by polite spies. If the household is receiving visitors today, and if they consider you important enough, you will be shown inside. If not, your card is placed on a tray to be displayed in the front hall, like a passive-aggressive social trophy. You step into the drawing room of the first household. The decor is perfect as expected. Every cushion is plumped. Every vase contains flowers arranged to look accidental, but definitely arranged by someone who studied flower arranging as if it were mathematics. Your hostess greets you with a smile that is warm, but not too warm. Anything beyond mild friendliness could be interpreted as suspicious enthusiasm. The conversation begins. Victorian visiting conversations last precisely 15 minutes. That is the unspoken limit. Anything shorter is rude. Anything longer is clingy. And since Victorians lived in constant dread of both rudeness and clinginess, everyone has perfected the art of the comfortable quarter-hour chat. You sit gracefully on a low chair, never the tallest seat, which could imply dominance, and offer a compliment. Not too effusive, not too specific. Something like, the roses in your garden are lovely this year, even if you haven't so much as glimpsed them. Your hostess replies with equal politeness, perhaps praising your ensemble, to which you must respond with a modest laugh that says, "Oh, this old thing," even though your outfit required 17 pieces, 4 layers, and a small team of textile engineers disguised as maids. You talk about last night's ball, you talk about the evening's upcoming dinner, you talk about the weather, because Victorians treat weather as a safe zone, the Switzerland of conversation. And beneath every word lies unspoken meaning. When your hostess says, "Oh, I believe Lady Pembroke enjoyed your company last night," she could mean, you impressed someone important, or you talked too loudly and she pretended to enjoy it, or she's talking about you, for reasons you should probably discover quickly. Victorian compliments have layers. Conversation continues. You maneuver gently around the topics of family, reputation, and acquaintances. You avoid politics, too divisive. You avoid money, too shocking. You avoid anything emotional, too unthinkable. The art of visiting is the art of being pleasantly present while revealing nothing meaningful about yourself. At the 15-minute mark, as if guided by invisible clockwork, you begin your polite retreat. A final smile, a final compliment, A final, gentle nod. You exit gracefully, aware that the hostess will remember everything about your visit. The exact length, the tone of your voice, the precise angle of your departing bow. One down, several more to go. Your carriage carries you onward, the wheels turning in rhythm with the afternoon's delicate pace. At the next house, the butler gives you a look that can only be described as politely evaluative. You hand over your calling card. Will they receive you? Will they pretend not to be home? Will they invite you in simply to inspect your outfit? Ah, you are admitted. Another drawing room. Another 15-minute performance. This time the hostess is slightly sharper, her smiles edged with curiosity. She asks probing questions disguised as innocent observations like, "I hear the Ravenscroft ball was quite eventful," with eventful carrying the weight of 10 different possible scandals. You navigate the conversation with finesse. You sip tea with elegance. You compliment her daughter's piano playing, though you haven't heard it. She pretends to believe you. And then, suddenly, the air shifts. A tiny social trap. She mentions a name, someone you know, someone who may or may not be a rival, depending on the day. You must respond with perfect neutrality. Too much enthusiasm signals allegiance. Too little signals dislike. An unguarded word could travel across London by supper time. You answer with a smile and a remark so vague it could mean anything. Something like, "They're always quite memorable." She nods, satisfied. You have passed the test. After the final call of the afternoon, you return to your carriage feeling the peculiar exhaustion that only social niceties can create. No heavy lifting, no running, no emotional breakdowns. Just smiling, nodding, and avoiding hidden landmines for hours. Victorian visiting is polite manipulation wrapped in silk and tea. One wrong sentence can cause a whisper. One wrong visit can cause offence. One wrong card can end an acquaintance. But today, you navigated it perfectly. And now, at last, you may retreat to tea and gossip. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It spares me from throwing myself dramatically onto a fainting couch in true Victorian fashion. By the time late afternoon settles over the townhouse, you've survived Hyde Park's silent duels and the precarious diplomacy of afternoon calls. Now, at last, you may retreat to something that appears gentle, soothing, and harmless. Tea. Or rather, the illusion of relaxation known as Victorian afternoon tea. Because while tea is warm and comforting, the conversations that swirl around it are anything but. You make your way into the drawing room, or perhaps the garden room if the weather is feeling charitable. The room is bright, airy, and meticulously arranged to look effortless in a way that required at least 4 servants and 2 hours of quiet chaos. Your hostess for the afternoon sits near the tea table, poised like a general at the helm of an operation. The porcelain set glitters softly. Delicate cups with gold rims, saucers so thin they threaten to shatter under the weight of expectation, and a teapot painted with flowers that have never existed in nature. Tea, you must understand, is not merely a beverage. It is a ritual, a ceremony, a social performance with stakes far higher than caffeine delivery. Your hostess begins by pouring the tea, because of course she must pour. In Victorian etiquette, the act of pouring signifies authority, hospitality, and subtle social dominance. Allowing someone else to pour would be like saying, "I relinquish my throne," which no elite woman would ever do voluntarily. You watch as she lifts the teapot with delicate precision. No spills, no drips, no steam hitting her lace cuff. This is a skill learned early and performed flawlessly. Now comes the first political decision of tea: who is served first? In a world of rigid social hierarchy, even the order of serving tea is a finely tuned message. The highest-ranking guest must receive their cup before anyone else, a practice that produces a cascade of meaning. The second cup signals inclusion. The third signals acceptance. The fourth signals, "We ran out of important people, but you may stay." You receive your cup somewhere in the polite middle, flattering enough to feel seen, but not attention-grabbing enough to spark whispers. Then comes the next delicate matter, sugar and milk. Victorians have strong opinions about tea and none of them are casual. Whether you add milk first or sugar first or neither speaks volumes about your upbringing, personality and general moral character. Milk first suggests you were raised with fine china, the kind that cracks under direct heat. It implies old money delicacy, the sort of refinement that comes with inherited porcelain and inherited expectations. Sugar first suggests practicality, or boldness, or depending on who is observing, a hint of rebelliousness. There will always be someone in the room willing to interpret your tea habits as a sign of questionable parentage. You choose your method with the same careful deliberation you'd use to sign a diplomatic treaty. Once the tea is prepared, the conversation begins to bloom gently around you. Gossip in the Victorian era is not loud or crude. It is refined, poetic, and delivered with the graceful menace of a lace-wrapped dagger. The topic might begin innocently enough. "Did you hear Lady Whitcomb left the opera early?" Spoken with a tone that suggests early departure is rarely innocent. Or someone might murmur, "I believe Lord Ascot has been seen in the company of Miss Hargreaves quite frequently." A statement that could mean romance, scandal, arrangement, or a poor choice of chaperone. Gossip flows like warm steam from the teacups, drifting, curling, disappearing, only to reappear moments later in new shapes. Everyone contributes something small. No one ever contributes too much, and the stories evolve with each retelling. A newly engaged couple becomes a couple who seemed friendly, then quite close, then possibly inappropriate, then back to engaged, but perhaps for the wrong reasons. Victorian gossip is both circular and acrobatic. You listen politely, adding the occasional soft "oh" when a new twist emerges. Someone mentions a dress that was a shade too daring. Another mentions a gentleman whose dance card behaviour was overly enthusiastic. A third whispers a theory about a family who might, just might, be struggling financially due to suspiciously fewer dinner invitations this month. Tea and scandal are inseparable partners. The Victorians sip one, savour the other, and never spill either. Between the whispered rumours, someone politely offers a plate of small cakes and pastries. You take one, knowing that declining food during tea is acceptable only if done with angelic grace. The cake is light, sweet, and probably contains enough butter to buy a pony. As you enjoy it, the conversation turns, inevitably, to politics. Not heated, fiery politics, Victorian afternoon politics. Which is to say, vague references to Parliament that convey opinions without stating them. Someone mentions the current situation, and someone else nods wisely. Someone references the agricultural question, and someone else murmurs agreement despite not knowing what the question is. Politics at tea is like seasoning, just enough to show refinement, never enough to ruin the flavour. Then, as the tea cools and the cakes diminish, the gossip deepens, softening into a kind of shared confession. Who danced with whom, who avoided whom, who appeared distressed in a corner, who may or may not be in talks for a future arrangement. All spoken with gentle tones and neutral expressions, as if reporting on the weather. You find yourself relaxing, or at least performing relaxation. Victorian elites do not collapse into chairs and sigh. They rest with dignity, they hold their cups lightly, their eyebrows remain calm, even when hearing news that could alter their entire social trajectory. Toward the end of tea, there is usually a moment of collective reflection, a soft lull. The room grows quieter, sunlight stretching across the patterned rug, the scent of Earl Grey drifting above the porcelain. It almost feels tranquil. Almost. Because beneath the warmth of the tea lies the truth. gossip is currency, and every whispered comment is a social investment. You rise gently when the final cup is set down. Tea is complete. Alliances have shifted by half a degree. Rumours have been exchanged like elegant trading cards, and everyone in the room feels, if not refreshed, at least updated. Evening in Victorian London does not simply begin. It unfolds, slowly, ceremoniously, like a velvet curtain rising in a well-rehearsed play. And at the heart of this grand performance lies the most formidable ritual of elite life: dinner. Not the casual, what shall we eat tonight? Dinner modern people enjoy. No, a Victorian elite dinner is an event, a battlefield, a test of social intelligence, a showcase of wealth, and occasionally a mild endurance challenge disguised as hospitality. Before you even think of sitting at the table, you must dress. Again, dressing for dinner is entirely separate from dressing for the morning, or the afternoon, or Hyde Park. Evening attire should signal elevated elegance, more structure, deeper colours, richer fabrics, diamonds if you're a woman, impeccable tailoring if you're a man. A lady's dress will almost certainly require assistance. Rows of hooks, delicate fastenings, a bustle readjusted with architectural precision. The corset remains firm, reminding you to breathe in polite increments. Your valet or maid fusses over every detail, ensuring that not a hair is out of place, not a wrinkle visible, not a bow off-centre. Because walking into a Victorian dinner with even one crooked detail is like showing up at a royal wedding in pyjamas, unforgettable for all the worst reasons. Dressed to perfection, you make your way toward the dining room, but the real battle began long before you arrived. The seating plan. Victorian hosts treat seating arrangements with the intensity of chess masters plotting a 9-move checkmate. Every guest must be positioned according to hierarchy, personality, alliances, flirtations, rivalries, ongoing scandals, and the occasional secret feud. The host's goal is to maintain balance. No two enemies side by side. No two introverts together. Disaster. No one too important seated too far from the host. And nobody seated where they might accidentally outshine the guest of honour. There is even a small, exquisite thrill guests feel when they discreetly examine place cards. Am I close to the head of the table? Am I seated beside someone fascinating? Or in darker moments, why am I all the way down there? You take your place according to the card bearing your name, written in elegant copperplate script. As everyone settles, the room falls into an anticipatory hush. The hush before the parade of refinement begins. Dinner is served à la Russe, the fashionable new style imported from the continent. Instead of placing all dishes on the table at once, which Victorians considered dangerously chaotic, each course is brought out individually, like a series of edible performances. A proper elite dinner includes 8 to 12 courses. Yes, 8 to 12. And you're expected to appreciate every one of them, or at least pretend convincingly. The meal begins with a delicate soup, thin, refined, and often made from ingredients that sound elegant even if they taste suspiciously like warm water. Then fish. Light, flavourful, presented in a way that ensures your plate resembles art more than sustenance. Then comes the entree, a word that means something different today, but in Victorian terms refers to smaller, refined dishes served after the fish, perhaps a perfectly arranged cutlet, perhaps something garnished with herbs that required an entire greenhouse staff to keep alive. All the while, footmen move in synchronized patterns, replacing plates, refreshing wine, and ensuring silverware never dares to rest in the wrong place. Victorian dining rooms operate with the precision of clockwork. Only the gears are human and wearing immaculate gloves. Next arrives the roast, often the centerpiece of the meal. A roast pheasant, a joint of beef, or a bird so elaborately decorated it looks like it might take flight at any moment. The roast symbolizes status. The larger the roast, the larger the estate, or so the rumours go. Then come the vegetables, but make no mistake, These are not humble vegetables. These are vegetables that have been groomed for this moment. Perfectly shaped carrots, glossy green peas. Potatoes so symmetrical they seem to have been sculpted. The later courses drift into the territory of frivolous luxury. Sorbets, sweets, pastries, elaborate moulded desserts that wobble with dignity. Each course whispers a message about the household. We can afford abundance. We can afford specialists. We can afford to waste your entire evening. And then there is the conversation. Victorian dinner conversation is an art form, one requiring timing, intelligence, and a strong awareness of who might be listening. You speak to the person on your right for the first half of the meal, and switch to the person on your left for the second half. These are the rules. Breaking them signals either rebellion or incompetence. The topics you may discuss: a narrow field. Politics, but lightly. Art, but only approved art. Society, but without slander, that is reserved for after dinner. Literature, but nothing controversial. Travel, but without appearing braggy. Science, but only if you can make it sound poetic. The traps are everywhere. If you praise someone too highly, you appear desperate. If you criticize someone too bluntly, you appear ruthless. If you show too much interest in marriageable individuals, you appear calculating. If you show too little interest, you appear suspiciously aloof. You navigate the spoken labyrinth with impeccable calm, offering polite insights, smiling at appropriate moments, and laughing softly, never loudly, at delicate jokes. Meanwhile, alliances are forming. Rivalries are simmering. Someone is subtly showing off their French. Someone else is pretending not to be jealous of your seat. One person is drinking too much claret and will regret it tomorrow. Another is humming with barely concealed triumph after being seated near the host. The dinner table is not a meal. It is a stage, a battlefield, a negotiation chamber. Every glance is loaded, every gesture calculated, every fork lifted with meaning. And then, after hours of elegance, the final course arrives. Dessert, shimmering under candlelight. It is light, sweet, fragile, and symbolic of a successful evening. Dinner draws to a close. The ladies rise first, drifting into the drawing room for conversation, tea, or gentle pianoforte selections. The men remain behind for port, cigars, and the kind of conversations deemed too heavy for delicate ears. But your day is far from over, because tonight there is a ball. Night in London glows differently during the season. Gas lamps flicker like golden fireflies, carriage wheels clatter with purpose, and every townhouse that matters seems to exhale warm light into the damp evening air. This is not just another night. This is a ball night, the shining apex of Victorian elite life, where silk, strategy, and social survival collide in the most elegant possible manner. Your carriage pulls up to the grand entrance of the host's mansion, its lamps mirrored in the polished brass of dozens of others. Footmen in immaculate livery stand at attention, helping guests descend as though each one were royalty. You step out onto the carpeted entrance with practiced grace, because even exiting a carriage is a performance, and tripping over your hem in front of the ton would be a scandal remembered until at least Wednesday. Inside, the ballroom unfolds like a gilded dream. Tall mirrors multiply the glow of hundreds of candles arranged in crystal chandeliers. The polished floor shines like liquid honey, reflecting the swirl of dresses already drifting through the space. Velvet drapes soften the walls. Gold accents gleam from every carved surface. And at the far end, an orchestra tunes their instruments with the quiet confidence of musicians who have played for people far too rich to ever clap on the wrong beat. You hand your outer wrap to a footman and glide into the ballroom, where the true drama of Victorian society plays out. The first thing placed in your hand is not a drink. It is a dance card, a delicate little booklet tied with ribbon, engraved with the evening's dance order. Inside, tiny lines await names, names of the partners who will accompany you through waltzes, quadrilles, polkas, and set dances, and suddenly the subtle tension of the ball begins humming beneath the glitter, because the dance card is not simply a list. It is social evidence. It is matchmaking currency. It is potential embarrassment bound in silk ribbon. A blank line is a public void. A full card is a triumph. A waltz specifically is a declaration, because the waltz involves close hold, shared breath, and a trust of posture that Victorian society pretends not to find intimate, but absolutely does. One waltz can mean more than a month of polite conversation. You scan the room. Young debutantes hover near chaperoned seating, their gowns shining like fresh blossoms. Every feather, jewel, and silk flower strategically placed to suggest effortless beauty, manufactured over 12 hours of preparation. Mothers take up positions along the walls like generals overlooking a battlefield. They track every movement. Who asks whom? Who hesitates? Who is whispered about? Who is dancing too frequently with the same person? Suspicious. Or not dancing enough? Alarming. Gentlemen approach with measured confidence. Not too eager. That smells of desperation. Not too aloof. That smells of arrogance. They request dances with the practiced charm of men who have been rehearsing since childhood. Your card begins to fill. A quadrille here, a cotillion there. A waltz requested by someone whose intentions are unclear, perhaps flattering, perhaps strategic, perhaps both. Music swells and the first set begins. The ballroom moves like a living organism. Colour, sound, perfume, soft laughter, rustling silk, all swirling in a choreography so seamless it seems effortless, though every dancer is silently tracking steps, posture, spacing, and whether their partner is stepping just a fraction too close. Dancing in the Victorian elite world is an exercise in poise and near mathematical precision. Hands must be placed at exactly the right angle. Heads must turn with gentle timing. Skirts must sweep gracefully without colliding with passing gentlemen. Even breathing must be elegant. You glide through your first dance with calm confidence. Your partner offers mild conversation, safe topics, soft compliments, nothing that could ignite gossip. You both know the rules. The dance floor is public, but the meaning behind each pairing is always quietly observed. The second dance begins, then the third. The quadrille, with its interlocking patterns, brings you into fleeting proximity with half the room. A convenient way to greet everyone without technically greeting anyone. By the time the orchestra begins the first waltz of the night, the ballroom holds its breath. Waltzes are invitations of interest, or invitations to rumours depending on who is watching. Your partner for the waltz approaches with practiced grace. The two of you step onto the floor as candles shimmer overhead. The orchestra swells, and you begin to move together, gliding in slow spirals. All around you, couples turn like constellations, each orbiting in precise, unspoken synchrony. The room blurs into a warm haze of motion. A single waltz can say more than hours of conversation. Do you hold your partner's gaze? Do you smile faintly? Do you look away too quickly? Does your footwork speak of ease or nerves? Victorian society reads all of this. Every step, every gesture, every breath. Moments of triumph bloom quietly. A well-executed turn, a compliment whispered in the narrowest socially acceptable tone. Moments of humiliation hide behind fans and gloves, a slip in timing, a partner who treads on a hem, a brief stumble that will be politely ignored tonight and quietly discussed tomorrow. During breaks, you drift toward the refreshment table. Bowls of punch gleam under candlelight. Platters of delicate pastries await the bold, though careful. Eating too enthusiastically at a ball is frowned upon. Nibbles only, elegant, invisible nibbles. The night deepens, dance cards fill. The orchestra plays with increasing warmth. The air grows richer with perfume, beeswax, and the faint heat of too many people trying to appear weightless. Through it all, the social dance continues. A glance exchanged here, a whispered remark there, fans fluttering in coded signals, gloves hiding trembling hands, debutantes hoping for a promising partner, gentlemen hoping not to embarrass themselves, mothers hoping for everything at once, and you, drifting through it all, navigating the glittering maze with steady poise, know that this is the heart of elite nightlife. A ballroom is where reputations shine, falter, grow, or collapse, where affection sparks, where alliances form, where gossip is born with lace-lined subtlety, and as the music swells again for another dance, you step forward into the gleaming chaos, because in the Victorian elite world, survival means dancing beautifully, even when your feet ache. When the final notes of the ballroom's orchestra fade into the velvet-draped night, the evening does not simply end. Victorian elites were constitutionally incapable of ending anything abruptly. Instead, the night shifts, softly, elegantly, into its next phase. The gentle descent from public brilliance into private indulgence. Your carriage rolls away from the glittering mansion, lanterns swaying, hooves tapping a slower rhythm now. The city is quieter at this hour. The fog settles low over the streets like a blanket pulled halfway up against the cold. A few other carriages pass, silhouettes of other guests drifting toward their own after-hours rituals. By the time you return home, the air inside the townhouse feels warmer, softer, less performative. The servants have prepared the rooms for the late hour. Lamps lit, fires coaxed low, curtains drawn just enough to let the night in without inviting its chill. The day's public expectations fall away by increments, like taking off invisible layers of armour. You step into the drawing room where the household, or select guests, may still be awake. This is the realm of night entertainment, where the social pressure eases but never fully disappears, and where the tone becomes gentler, secretive, and beautifully indulgent. Someone strikes a match and lights the final lamp of the evening, its glow settling across the room like warm honey. Shadows gather in corners, stretching long and soft across polished floors. The quiet crackling of the fireplace becomes the room's heartbeat. The first sign of true relaxation, people actually sit, properly sit, without worrying about posture angles being judged by the ton. A tray of refreshments remains on a sideboard. Sherry, port, a small dish of candied fruit, perhaps a bowl of almonds. Late-night snacks are not meant to be filling, just charming little accompaniments to conversation. Someone suggests parlour games, one of the Victorian elite's favourite amusements. Games were the perfect way to unwind without ever appearing idle, because leisure, even at night, had to look purposeful. You might play charades, which Victorians adored with alarming intensity. Nothing delights an elite crowd like watching someone try to silently mime the concept of political disappointment, or Lady Pembroke's unfortunate cousin. Laughter ripples through the room, soft, controlled, elegant. No one wishes to snort. Snorting is a grave sin, or perhaps someone proposes consequences. A writing game that produces stories both absurd and mildly scandalous. Participants exchange paper slips describing improbable romantic encounters, which always end with a marriage proposal, a duel, or a fainting episode. If the group is quieter, a guest may wander to the piano, lightly brushing their fingers over the keys before beginning a gentle nocturne or an excerpt from a popular opera. The room listens with polite appreciation. Music at this hour feels especially fragile, like a whisper that holds the entire night in suspension. Between songs, you find yourself drifting towards small conversations, and here, at last, the tone shifts from public performance to something almost intimate. Voices lower, words soften. The topics become lighter, sometimes even personal, though never truly revealing. Victorians were adept at sharing just enough of themselves to seem charming, while keeping entire continents of emotion hidden beneath the surface. A couple sits close, speaking quietly. Their conversation looks harmless, but the distance between their chairs shrinks by half an inch every few minutes. A scandal in slow motion, but tasteful, always tasteful. Two friends trade whispered commentary about the ball, who stepped on whose hem, who danced far too enthusiastically during the polka, who appeared flushed after a certain waltz. Gossip becomes gentler at night, less weaponized, more like shared amusement between allies. A gentleman pours himself a small glass of port, swirling it as though deep in reflection. In reality, he's simply tired, but appearing contemplative adds a touch of romance to the scene, so he goes with it. In a corner, someone reads, quietly, dramatically, with the soft rustling of pages. Perhaps Tennyson, perhaps Dickens, perhaps something too sentimental to admit to in daylight. Reading aloud is also common. A favourite poem, a scene from a flattering novel, something soothing enough to ease the transition from society's spotlight to the soft shadows of home. All of this unfolds under the soft glow of lamplight, golden and gentle. Curtains muffle the outside world. The air smells faintly of old books, warm embers, and the perfume lingering in gowns and coats. There is a sense, in these late-night hours, that the elite world becomes almost human. Almost. Because beneath the softness, the undercurrents remain. A flirtation has implications. A lingering glance may start a rumour tomorrow. A poorly timed laugh might be remembered longer than it should, and a whispered exchange between two people who shouldn't be whispering to each other. Well, that is the kind of subtle drama Victorian society thrives on. But for tonight, no one speaks of consequences. Everyone pretends the night belongs solely to its gentle pleasures. After some time, minutes or hours, depending on the guests and their stamina, the atmosphere begins to slow. The room grows quieter. The fire lowers itself into a sleepy glow. A few yawns appear behind gloved fingers. This is the shift, the gentle tilt toward the end of night entertainment. Someone stands, smoothing their attire with practiced elegance. Another rises to say a soft goodnight. Couples drift toward the stairs. Footsteps muffled by thick carpets fade slowly through the house. You remain a moment longer, letting the hush settle around you. The velvet curtains, the half-empty glasses, the open book left waiting on the table. All of it feels like a gentle exhale after a day performed in public. Night entertainment is not loud, nor thrilling, nor dramatic. It is a soft unravelling, a quiet letting go, a dimly lit sanctuary where the elite finally allow themselves to be merely human, elegant, weary, amused, and ready for rest. Soon you will climb the staircase toward your private chambers, but the night is not done yet, because beneath your feet, in the warmth and shadows of the house, another world is still very much awake. While you drift upstairs toward the hushed comfort of your chambers, the rest of the house is only just beginning its most demanding shift. Victorian elite life may quiet itself at night, but downstairs, beneath carpets, behind doorways and through narrow corridors, the true machinery of the household hums to life. Servant life is its own universe, structured, disciplined, relentless. An invisible empire moving in silence. And now, as the last murmurs of night entertainment fade, that empire grows louder, busier, and more alive. You may imagine that once the elite retire, the servants yawn, stretch, and head straight to bed. They do not at all. The moment lamps dim in the drawing rooms above, work explodes below. The butler gives his final instructions for the night, his voice low but always authoritative. He is the general of this subterranean army. His waistcoat is unwrinkled, his posture as sharp as at breakfast, even though he's been on duty for 16 hours straight. He knows every footstep in the house, every clink of silver, every whisper of linen, and he notices mistakes the way hawks notice movement. Around him, footmen glide like shadows. Their tasks begin immediately. One footman collects the empty glasses left behind upstairs, placing them carefully into trays so nothing rattles. Another extinguishes lamps, but only the ones the family won't notice. A third begins the careful inspection of the dining room, ensuring no crumb, no candle stub, no stray drop of wine has dared remain. Every motion is swift, trained, nearly silent. Below stairs, the kitchen staff is still at work too. The cook, cheeks still flushed from the heat of ovens that burned all day, oversees the final washing of heavy pots and delicate moulds. A scullery maid scrubs pans until her arms tremble. Another dries endless stacks of china, each one expensive enough to buy her family's cottage back home. The kitchen smells of warm bread crusts, citrus peels, and the lingering aromas of the 12-course dinner you barely finished. The servants' hall, their equivalent of a dining room, is momentarily quiet. Long benches, a large wooden table, a few dented mugs left from their own quick meal earlier in the day. Their supper was taken in mere minutes, snatched between tasks, eaten while standing more often than sitting. The housemaid starts her rounds next. She moves quickly, knowing her real work begins only after every elite room is unoccupied. She empties fireplaces, shakes out rugs, gathers stray gloves and fans. She checks candles and kerosene levels. She adjusts the position of ottomans so they appear naturally inviting. Even the angle of a chair must be correct. She sees everything you don't. The fingerprints on a silver vase, the dust that settles behind the settee, the scorch on a lampshade only visible when the light hits it from the left. And this is the late shift, the night shift, because Victorian households, especially wealthy ones, never fully sleep. Nearby, the lady's maid begins preparing your clothing for tomorrow. She smooths wrinkles, stitches loose threads, brushes fabric, and arranges each piece precisely as you will expect to find it. If you noticed how perfect your gown or coat looked earlier today, know this: it wasn't magic. It was hours of her labour. The valet does the same for the master of the house, polishing boots until they reflect the lamplight, ensuring cravats are crisp, evening coats aired, hats brushed, gloves softened. His movements are efficient but weary. Valets live in service of another man's appearance, and the standards are relentless. Further down the hallway, near the servants' stairs, two maids whisper, softly, cautiously. They exchange a few quick words about the ball, about the guests, about who seemed interesting or important or scandalous. Their gossip is short-lived. The housekeeper appears, and conversation evaporates instantly. The housekeeper is the queen of the downstairs world, strict, organised, and terrifyingly perceptive. She knows when pillows need replacing before the pillows themselves know. She can walk into a room and sense, without looking, which maid missed a corner while dusting. Even at this hour she's working. She checks accounts. She updates her ledgers. She decides tomorrow's cleaning assignments. She monitors every corridor with the vigilance of a lighthouse keeper searching the dark for danger. And all of this unfolds under the weight of the household's strict hierarchy. The butler outranks the housekeeper in prestige, but not in territory. The housekeeper outranks every maid. The cook outranks most of the staff except the butler. Footmen outrank maids. Kitchen maids outrank scullery maids. And scullery maids outrank no one. Except, perhaps, dust. Everyone knows their place. Everyone knows the consequences of stepping out of it. Rivalries simmer quietly. A maid might resent a footman's easier duties. A scullery girl might envy the kitchen maid's better position. A young footman might compete with another for the butler's approval. A potential path to promotion. Fatigue too is constant. But pride exists here, surprisingly strong. The servants take pride in the shine of the silver, the crease of the tablecloth, the beauty of a room prepared so perfectly that the family never wonders how much work it required. Victorian service is a world of invisible triumphs, victories measured not in praise, which is rare, but in the absence of complaints. Midnight passes, then 1 o'clock, then 2. Gradually, tasks complete themselves under skilled hands. The last dish is dried. The final candle is trimmed. The silver is polished. The hearths are set for morning fires. The windows checked. The doors locked. Only then do servants begin to drift toward their cramped attic rooms or narrow basement quarters. Their day has lasted 16, maybe 17 hours. Tomorrow will be the same. They fall asleep quickly, sometimes still wearing half their uniform, dreaming not of grandeur but of rest. And upstairs, you sleep peacefully, unaware of the human machinery that keeps your world soft and seamless. Because in the Victorian era, elite life looked effortless, only because dozens of people worked tirelessly, always present, always watching, never seen. And before we move on, do be kind and subscribe. It's the only recognition this poor narrator receives. At last, after the glittering chaos of the ballroom and the soft hush of late-night parlour talk, the house leans into its quietest hours. Lamps burn low, corridors fall still, and upstairs, behind the protective shield of carved doors and velvet curtains, the Victorian elite enter their rarest state, personal time. Not freedom exactly. Victorians do not relax the way modern people do. They do not collapse into armchairs, sprawl across beds, or binge consume anything. No, their version of unwinding is gentle, curated, quietly elegant, and always wrapped in the awareness of how they should appear even when no one is watching. You slip into your private sitting room. The fire glows low but warm, casting amber light across the space. The room smells faintly of lavender sachets and dry parchment, the scent of wealth that has never once been rushed. Here, the tone of the entire day softens, the performance fades, the posture loosens, slightly, only slightly, and your breath deepens in a way the corset would disapprove of if it could speak. This is the hour for approved hobbies, the kind Victorian society deemed acceptable for refined minds and delicate dispositions. Not passions, not obsessions, not anything that might make you appear too individualistic. Instead, quiet arts, delicate tasks, gentle diversions. You may begin with embroidery. A hoop of fine linen rests in your hands. Colourful threads spill like silk rivers from a polished wooden box. You stitch small, precise patterns, flowers, initials, ornamental designs you've done 100 times. Nothing wild, nothing messy, nothing loud. Embroidery is soothing because it is predictable. The needle enters, exits, leaves a tiny mark. It mirrors Victorian life itself, tidy, restrained, purposeful. And there is pride in the smoothness of your stitches, because the world may be chaotic, but your thread never is. Or perhaps tonight your hands drift instead toward watercolour sketching, the gentlest of the visual arts. The pigments sit in small porcelain dishes. A cup of water reflects lamplight like molten gold. You paint soft landscapes, delicate flowers, faint streams of colour. Victorians prized watercolours for their softness. Bold oils were dramatic, daring, almost emotional, and therefore suspicious. Your brush moves lightly, leaving hints of colour on white paper, each stroke whispering a little bit of calm into the room. If your fingers crave music instead, you move toward the pianoforte, always quietly, never with the gusto of someone playing for applause. This is not performance, this is self-presentation, even in solitude. You sit, straighten your back, the corset insists, and place your fingers gently on ivory keys. A nocturne maybe, a simple waltz, a few bars of something sentimental but never too emotional. Victorians did not cry at pianos, they sighed poetically. Gentle notes drift into the room, soft enough that only those still awake nearby might hear, carried on the hush of velvet curtains and polished walls. If your mood leans more introspective tonight, You may choose another acceptable late-night indulgence, polite reading. You take a book from the shelf, something improving, respectable, and morally safe. A novel by Trollope or Dickens, perhaps. Poetry by Tennyson, essays on travel, nothing scandalous, nothing French, nothing you'd hide under your bed if your mother walked in. You read slowly, savouring the rhythmic rustle of each page. Books offer the rare gift of immersion without risk. In a world where reputation can shatter over the smallest misstep, stories provide a safe escape, curated imagination approved by society. After a chapter or two, you close the book with gentle satisfaction, its leather cover warm from your hands. But the most intimate ritual of this hour, the one not spoken of yet universally practiced, is private reflection. Victorians loved diaries. They filled them with careful lines written in flowing ink, capturing the day's triumphs, its tensions, its observations, and its performances. You sit at your writing desk, open a fresh page, and let the nib of your pen glide across the paper. You might write about the ball, who danced with you, who avoided you, who whispered too loudly behind a fan. You might write about Hyde Park, who bowed, who nodded, who pretended not to see you. You might write about the dinner, the seating plan, the compliments, the delicate politics wrapped in courses of roasted splendour. Or perhaps you confess things the world would never hear. The relief of stepping out of the ballroom spotlight, the exhaustion of maintaining perfect posture and perfect poise, the tiny anxieties tucked beneath your elegantly structured silhouette, the quiet wish that you could laugh too loudly, or dance too freely, or say something without calculating its social impact. The diary receives all of it. Ink does not judge, paper does not whisper to the neighbours. You dip your pen, write, pause, breathe. The fire pops softly in the grate. The house creaks gently, settling into the deeper hours of night. When the diary closes, the room feels calmer, not because your worries vanish, but because writing them down transforms them into something gentler, something manageable, something you can tuck away until morning. Now you sit back in your chair and simply exist. The luxury of quiet wealth settles around you like a soft blanket, not ostentatious, not loud, but warm in its stability. Yet paired with this comfort is the shadow of unspoken pressure, the endless expectation to be a certain person in a certain way for a certain society. It is the paradox of elite life, calm surroundings, anxious hearts, soft leisure, strict rules. Private beauty, public expectations. For a few more minutes you let the silence hold you. The fire flickers lower, your breathing slows, the clock ticks with steady, reassuring rhythm. And then, eventually you rise, gently, unhurriedly, preparing to leave this quiet sanctuary of self. Because the night, though peaceful, is not over yet. Beyond the city, beyond the gas lamps, beyond the drawing rooms, one final realm awaits before sleep truly begins. As the night deepens and the embers in your fireplace sink into a warm, sleepy glow, your thoughts drift, as so many Victorian elites' thoughts did, far from the city, far from London's tight ballrooms and frantic season obligations, far from the clatter of carriages, the shine of polished boots, and the endless, elegant battle of reputation. You drift toward the memory of your country estate, that quieter, older, deeper world waiting beyond the city's social machinery. It's a strange truth of elite life. While society judges you based on your performance in London, your identity, your real identity, lies miles away, out among the wide fields and long shadows of the countryside. City life is a stage. The estate is the inheritance. London shows who you appear to be. The estate shows what you truly own. And for Victorians, the two could not be more different. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the approach to the estate as if you were arriving there now. Picture it. A long gravel drive stretching between old stone walls. Trees planted by ancestors who believed in planting for great-grandchildren. A house that does not glitter like townhouses do, but stands instead in quiet authority. The kind of authority polished by centuries. In the city, power sparkles. In the countryside, power breathes. State life sits outside time in a way London never can. The air feels cleaner, the nights darker, the silence deeper. There is no orchestra here, no chatter of debutantes, no dance cards fluttering like butterflies with romantic consequences attached. Instead, there are star-filled skies, echoing hallways, and broad landscapes that stretch so far they swallow your worries whole. In this late-night moment, imagining the estate feels like stepping into a painting. Fields roll out like soft green blankets. A greenhouse glows faintly in the distance. The pride of your estate gardener, who treats delicate exotic plants with a devotion usually reserved for saints. Old stone staircases carry the marks of centuries of footsteps. Vine-covered walls creep gently upward, aging gracefully in a way Victorians secretly envied. Inside the house, long galleries display rows of ancestral portraits, stern gentlemen with impossible collars, and ladies whose expressions hover somewhere between mild disdain and artistic constipation. Yet these portraits matter. They are the unspoken history of your family, the proof that you do not exist in isolation but as part of a lineage stretching backward into mist. When Victorian elites look at these portraits, they don't just see faces, they see expectations, validation, obligations, and occasionally questionable fashion choices that somehow built an empire anyway. In London, you play the game of the season. At the estate, you inherit its purpose. Country life is more than peace. It is power. Power measured not in diamonds or invitations, but in land. Land is everything. Land means influence. Land means stability. Land means that your family will matter long after the last ballroom candle has burned itself out. This is why Victorian elites endured endless social chaos in London. Dinners, teas, balls, visits, performances. Because those performances protected the thing that truly mattered, the estate. In the quiet of the night, imagining your estate feels like imagining a second self, the version of you that is not bound by the hour-to-hour schedule of social expectation, the version that belongs to the land rather than the gossip pages. You picture the estate's library, cool, quiet, filled with leather-bound books that smell like ancient stories. The windows open onto rolling hills. The only sound is the wind brushing through tall grass. No one watching, no one judging. Just you and the landscape, coexisting peacefully. You picture the stables, the pride of any respectable country estate, with horses groomed to a shine not because anyone is watching, but because excellence is expected even in solitude. You picture the estate kitchens, larger and warmer than the London ones, where cooks prepare hearty meals meant for comfort rather than display. Meals that actually feed, not just impress. And you picture the mornings, waking not to coal smoke and city clamour, but to birdsong and mist curling gently off the fields. It is a different world entirely. Victorians often said that London is where you perform, but the countryside is where you belong. And though you are lying in your city bedroom now, silk coverlet drawn up to your chin, the idea of the estate eases your mind the way quiet landscapes always do. Because the estate is not just property, it is identity, it is generational pride. It is the core around which the rest of your elaborate life spins. The contrast between the city's chaos and the countryside's dignity is one the Victorian elite lived constantly. London, noise, strategy, performance, glitter, the estate, silence, stability, legacy, gravity. You feel the difference as vividly as if you were stepping from the ballroom floor onto dew-covered grass. And in this calm moment, thinking of that estate, its land, its history, its quiet authority, feels like a soft exhale. A reminder that beneath the layers of fashion and expectation, beneath the pressure of alliances and appearances, beneath the gossip and spectacle and ceremony, there is something solid, something older, something that asks nothing of you except to remember where you came from. The city makes you visible. The estate makes you real. As the lamps in your room flicker lower, you let that thought settle gently. A late-night reflection, soothing, grounding, tinged with a strange comfort. And before sleep arrives, you feel it clearly. In the countryside, you're part of the land's quiet story. In London, you're part of the world's loud performance. Tomorrow, the performance begins again. But for now, in this hush, in this room, in this hour, you let the estate hold you, if only in memory. The night has grown late, that quiet, silvery hour when even London seems to hold its breath. The last lamps in the hallways have been turned low, their golden lights softening into warm puddles along the floorboards. The house, which only hours ago buzzed with activity, now settles into a stillness so complete, it feels sacred. You return to your bedroom, the silent sanctuary where the demands of elite life cannot follow you, at least not loudly. Your personal maid or valet has already been through, preparing the room with the precise care of someone laying the groundwork for a restful dream. The fire in the grate has been tamed to a gentle flicker, its embers glowing like sleepy jewels. The curtains have been drawn, shutting out the city and its expectations. A glass of water waits on the bedside table. A book lies half open where you left it earlier, as if encouraging you to pick it up again, though you know you won't. The quiet feels strange at first, after a day spent in layers of noise, polite noise, elegant noise, strategic noise. This silence feels almost too loud. It hums softly. You move through the room with slower steps now. Your posture relaxes, a tiny rebellion. Your shoulders drop half an inch. The corset has been removed, leaving you feeling vaguely taller, freer, and slightly surprised that your lungs have this much capacity after all. This is the hour when the final thoughts of the day begin to drift through your mind. Thoughts the world cannot hear. Thoughts that require no perfect phrasing, no strategic tone, no polite performative calm. You think about tomorrow's obligations, of course. Which event must you attend? Which acquaintance must you avoid? Which calls must be made? Which alliances must be quietly maintained? These thoughts drift in and out like passing clouds, light enough not to keep you awake, but present enough to remind you that morning will arrive with its usual expectations. Then come the alliances you've nurtured through the day. A successful conversation here, a promising glance there, a dance card filled correctly, a social trap avoided with finesse, a rival's subtle jab answered with a smile so charming it should be framed. These are the small victories the outside world never sees, but they shape your social trajectory all the same. Then come the fears, the gentle ones, not the dramatic kind. Fear of being judged, fear of being misinterpreted, fear of missing the mark at an event. Fear of saying too little or too much, of wearing the wrong shade, of arriving 2 minutes late and giving someone ammunition for gossip. They hover for a moment, soft spectres, not dangerous but familiar, and then, thankfully, come the comforts. You approach the bed, an enormous, luxurious piece of furniture covered in a quilt so heavy it feels like a hug made of fabric. The mattress welcomes you with a softness that no amount of anxiety can fully resist. You slip beneath the blankets, and the world suddenly becomes warmer, smaller, gentler. The cool night air brushes your face. Somewhere outside, a distant carriage rolls by, its wheels clattering softly over cobblestone. A dog barks faintly in another street. The city hums in the background, as if whispering a lullaby designed specifically for those who work too hard at looking effortless today. You nestle deeper. The blankets settle around you like a cocoon. Your muscles unclench one by one, as though responding to an unspoken command. For the first time today, you breathe without thinking about how you look while doing it. In this moment, the elite world's expectations fade. No dance steps to remember, no glances to interpret, no social maneuvers to execute, no lines to recite, no strategic pauses, no polite nodding, no silent rivalry with Lady Pembroke's eyebrows. Only rest. You close your eyes. The embers crackle faintly, an old sound that feels like companionship. Shadows sway gently across the room as the fire shifts, each movement slow and comforting. If you listen closely, you can even hear the soft settling of the house, wood relaxing after a long day of hosting, supporting, witnessing. In this final hour, you are neither an ornament nor an actor. You're simply a person in a quiet room, wrapped in warmth, finally allowed to exist without pretense. The day's memories drift like feathers, the rustle of silk in a ballroom, the whisper of fans, the clink of silver in a dining room lit by candlelight, the murmur of gossip over tea, the rhythmic roll of your carriage along Rotten Row, the secret world below stairs moving tirelessly through the night, the familiar echo of boots on marble floors, the familiar pang of expectation, and the familiar relief of slipping out of sight. Your mind softens, your breathing deepens, your thoughts stretch out long and smooth, like a cat in a sunbeam. And as you lie there, letting the heaviness of sleep build slowly, you feel it, the exhale you've been waiting for all day. Victorian elite life may be wrapped in silk and ceremony, but this moment, lying here in the hush of your private chamber, is the first moment that truly belongs to you. Just you, just warmth, just stillness. Tomorrow morning, the machinery of reputation will start again. Letters will arrive, schedules will fill, eyes will watch, rules will follow you like shadows, but not yet. Tonight, in this quiet, you let yourself be soft, human, tired, free. The city hums its muted lullaby beyond your window. The blankets hold you gently. The fire sings its last sleepy crackles. And for the first time today, you allow yourself to drift, not into performance, but into rest. And now, at the end of this long, delicate, beautifully orchestrated Victorian day, you finally let the last of the world slip away. You've moved through velvet-draped rooms, candlelit halls, whispered alliances, and glittering ballrooms with the same effortless grace expected of the elite. You've played your part in a world stitched together by tradition, ceremony, and an extraordinary number of rules that no one ever writes down. Rules everyone somehow already knows. As you rest here, sinking deeper into the quiet of your room, imagine the house around you settling too. The grand staircases resting after a day's worth of footsteps. The portraits in their gilded frames watching over the hallways with their eternal, mildly judgmental eyes. The silver cooling in the dining room. The ball gowns sleeping on silk hangers. The servants. Finally, collapsing into their narrow beds downstairs. Outside your window, the city exhales. Gas lamps flicker, carriages slow. The fog wraps softly around the rooftops like a blanket pulled up by night itself. You've walked through the world of the Victorian elite, all its splendour, its polish, its beauty, its unspoken pressure, and now, here in your quiet chamber, you can let all of it go. All the expectations, all the glances, all the perfect gestures, all the silent calculations behind every polite smile. Feel the blankets grow heavier, warmer. Feel your breath soften. Feel your mind drift like lace on a gentle breeze. Tomorrow will come with new responsibilities, new alliances, new invitations, and new rules to navigate. But not now, not in this stillness, not in this calm. Tonight, the world is yours. Quiet, safe, dimly lit, unbothered. Let yourself unwind the way the city unwinds, slowly, gracefully, like a curtain falling after a long performance. Rest in the knowledge that you've lived this day fully, beautifully, without missing a single step of the grand Victorian dance. Let the last embers glow softly at the edge of your awareness. Let sleep move toward you at its own gentle pace. And before we part for the night, thank you for being here. Truly. If you choose to subscribe, know it supports me more than you might ever guess. And I promise, no Victorian etiquette handbook will be involved.